The story of the Knights Templar begins in the early 12th century, amidst the chaos of the Crusades. These were men who pledged their lives to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. Yet from their humble origins arose an order that would become one of the most powerful, wealthy, and mysterious institutions in medieval Europe. Unlike ordinary knights, the Templars were bound by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, yet their influence quickly grew far beyond the battlefield. They built fortresses, amassed wealth, and accumulated knowledge that many believe could alter the course of history. Their rise was meteoric, fueled by courage, discipline, and a reputation for incorruptibility. It was this very prominence that would eventually draw envy, suspicion, and fear from kings, popes, and rivals alike. What set the Templars apart was not just their military skill, but their unique combination of devotion, strategy, and secrecy. They became guardians of more than people. They were protectors of treasures and sacred relics, custodians of knowledge that might have seemed incomprehensible to outsiders. Every fortress they built, every document they produced, and every ritual they performed carried layers of meaning, encoded with symbols and knowledge meant only for those initiated into the Order's mysteries. To the untrained eye, the Templars were simply knights, but to those who studied them carefully, they were something far more enigmatic, a force that operated at the intersection of faith, power, and hidden knowledge. Even today, the allure of the Templars continues to captivate imagination. Their story is shrouded in legend, speculation, and mystery, and while centuries have passed since their fall, questions remain. What exactly did they protect? How far did their influence reach? And what secrets, buried beneath the weight of history, still linger, hidden from sight, waiting to be discovered? This journey into their world promises to explore not only the known history, but the whispers, the conspiracies, and the enigmas that have kept the Templars alive in myth and memory for nearly a millennium. The story of the Templars begins not in battlefields or grand castles, but in the quiet, perilous spaces of devotion and ambition, where the spiritual and the practical intersected. The early 12th century was a time of upheaval, a Europe caught between feudal fragmentation and the fervent drive of the Crusades. Pilgrims journeyed across dangerous lands, facing bandits, deserts, and hostile armies, carrying faith as their only shield. It was in this volatile environment that a small band of knights came together under a shared purpose: to protect the faithful traveling to the Holy Land. Their mission seemed simple, almost humble, yet it would become something far greater, something that would challenge the very foundations of religious and political authority. The order began as a modest brotherhood, monks sworn to poverty, chastity, and obedience, yet trained as skilled warriors. Unlike other monastic orders, the Templars embraced both the spiritual and the martial, creating a unique synthesis of piety and power. They adopted a distinctive white mantle adorned with a simple red cross, a symbol that would become emblematic of courage, sacrifice, and, later, whispered secrets. Their headquarters were modest at first, but they quickly expanded, establishing fortified centers along the most perilous pilgrimage routes. Pilgrims who encountered the Templars found sanctuary, security, and guidance. Yet beneath this outward display of holiness, a more enigmatic purpose quietly took shape. The Templars' rise was not merely a matter of battlefield prowess or devout reputation. It was also a story of strategy, cunning, and foresight. They established a network that extended across Europe and the Levant, creating a system of financial acumen that astonished contemporaries. Medieval Europe, still emerging from the shadows of feudal disorder, saw in the Templars an order that combined religious authority with administrative brilliance. They accepted deposits from kings and nobles, offered loans, and facilitated transactions that no secular bank could match. It was a power that drew admiration, envy, and suspicion in equal measure. Yet even as they amassed influence, there was an undercurrent of something far less tangible, a sense that the Templars were privy to knowledge and mysteries beyond the reach of ordinary men. This knowledge, whether factual or legend, shaped the aura of the Templars from the very beginning. Some chroniclers spoke of hidden texts brought from the East, manuscripts containing sacred geometry, codes, and prophecies. Others hinted at discoveries made in the ruins of Jerusalem and other ancient sites, secrets that suggested the Templars' mission extended beyond protection and warfare into realms of spiritual guardianship. They were said to understand the esoteric meaning of relics, the power of symbols, and the threads connecting faith, bloodline, and destiny. To contemporaries, these whispers were frightening. To those seeking power, they were irresistible. It is important to imagine the world they entered. Crusader states were fragile and often at the mercy of larger forces. Local rulers, ambitious and wary, saw in the Templars a potential ally or a dangerous rival. Religious authorities, too, oscillated between favor and suspicion, recognizing the Templars' unique role in Christendom while questioning their autonomy. Within this complex web of politics, faith, and warfare, the Templars carved out a niche that was at once indispensable and alarming. Their actions were carefully calculated, their strategies meticulous, and their loyalties, at least outwardly, to God and the mission at hand. Yet the more successful they became, the more they attracted scrutiny, envy, and, eventually, the forces that would seek to destroy them. The Templars' early years were marked by a delicate balance of visibility and secrecy. They trained in fortresses where the walls bore silent witness to vows, strategies, and rituals hidden from public view. They negotiated with kings and sultans, often acting as diplomats as well as warriors. They learned to encode messages, hide valuables, and preserve knowledge in ways that would outlast any single generation. Every new fortress, every strategic alliance, was not just a step in territorial or financial expansion, but measured to safeguard the more enigmatic aspects of their order. The outward appearance of knights on a religious mission masked layers of hidden intent, much of which would remain a mystery for centuries. It is within this context that the notion of the Templars as keepers of secret knowledge first takes root. Historians debate the reality of these claims, some dismissing them as legend, others noting anomalies in records, unusual wealth, and unexplained movements of property and people. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, yet the fascination endures because it suggests a world in which knowledge is power, and power is preserved through secrecy. The Templars, for all their visible accomplishments, were also masters of the unseen, guardians not only of pilgrims, but, perhaps, of ideas and lineages that would echo long after the Order's apparent destruction. To understand the Templars' origins is to understand more than the facts of their foundation. It is to enter a landscape of tension, ambition, and hidden purpose. Every fortress built, every crusade fought, every ledger maintained, points toward a vision of an order that saw itself as the bridge between earthly authority and divine truth. Their early years are a study in contrasts, humility and power, faith and cunning, devotion and secrecy. And it is precisely this duality, this blend of the overt and the hidden, that would shape the mysteries we continue to explore, the secrets they carried into exile, the knowledge encoded in symbols, and the bloodlines they protected with a vigilance that outlasted empires. The Templars were more than warriors. They were guardians, and the objects they protected elevated their mission from mere military duty to the realm of sacred responsibility. Tales of the Holy Grail, the True Cross, and even the lost Ark of the Covenant are interwoven with their story, whispers that grew louder over centuries. These relics were not just symbols of faith, but vessels of power, carrying within them a significance that few could comprehend. To the Templars, The preservation of such objects was a matter of spiritual duty, but also one of secrecy. They understood that what they held in their hands could shape nations, influence rulers, and even alter the course of history if misused or misunderstood. In the Holy Land, the Templars' fortresses became sanctuaries not only for pilgrims, but for sacred knowledge. Every stone of their citadels seemed to hum with purpose, guarding treasures that ordinary men would never glimpse. Chronicles and legends hint at hidden chambers, vaults built with layers of deception and protection, where relics were cataloged, studied, and revered. Some spoke of ritualistic care, ceremonies designed to attune the knights to the relic's spiritual resonance. The lines between devotion, science, and secrecy blurred. The Templars' reverence for these objects went beyond superstition and entered the domain of mastery, a deep understanding of symbols, power, and human belief. Consider the true cross, fragments of which the Templars claim to have safeguarded. Pilgrims and kings alike sought its blessings, believing it conferred divine favor. Yet for the Templars, it represented more than piety. It was a link to an ancient power structure, a tangible connection to the crucifixion of Christ and the spiritual energies that they believed could be harnessed for protection, guidance, and revelation. Similarly, the Holy Grail, shrouded in layers of legend, was not merely a chalice of legend, but a symbol of divine continuity, a vessel through which sacred bloodlines and esoteric wisdom were preserved. The Templars' custodianship of such relics positioned them as silent arbiters of power, able to influence kings, shape the fate of crusader states, and maintain a delicate balance between faith and authority. But it was not only in the Holy Land that these objects held significance. When Templar influence expanded across Europe, the order carried with it fragments of sacred knowledge, often hidden within the very architecture of their newly constructed fortresses and commanderies. Certain geometric patterns, cryptic inscriptions, and unusual layouts hint at a deeper logic, a code woven into stone and mortar. These were not idle decorations, nor mere displays of wealth and sophistication. They were deliberate markers, guiding initiates, concealing secrets, and protecting what could not be entrusted to the uninitiated. Some historians dismiss these as coincidence, yet the consistency across distant Templar sites suggests a deliberate plan, an encoded system of guardianship that spanned kingdoms and centuries. The Templars' reputation as keepers of relics also drew attention, and not all of it benign. Rival orders, kings, and even popes watched their movements with suspicion. Rumors spread of treasures beyond mere gold, objects imbued with spiritual or mystical significance, capable of bestowing insight, authority, or even longevity. The order's careful secrecy fueled both fear and fascination, enhancing their mystique. Some tales suggest that even the knowledge of these relics' existence was controlled, whispered only to trusted members, creating layers of protection, both physical and psychological. A common knight might defend a fortress with sword and shield, yet a higher-ranking brother would understand the vault's deeper purpose, the sacred texts and relics stored within, and the unbroken lineage of guardianship that connected each generation to the last. This interplay between the physical and the metaphysical defined the Templars. They were scholars as well as warriors, mystics as well as strategists. Their role as custodians required more than martial skill. It demanded wisdom, discipline, and an understanding of forces few could perceive. There are accounts of cryptic rituals performed in the dead of night, ceremonies that bound knights to the relics they protected, ceremonies that may have encoded knowledge into symbols, architecture, and even oral traditions passed quietly from master to apprentice. These practices suggest a worldview in which material objects were more than possessions. They were keys, conduits, and anchors, connecting the earthly and the divine, the past and the future. Perhaps most intriguing is the theory that these relics were not only symbols, but also tools to safeguard the Templars' knowledge of bloodlines and hidden lineages. Some scholars and mystics have argued that sacred vessels like the Grail were metaphors for genetic preservation, that the Templars' custodianship extended to the careful protection of families, heirs, and bloodlines that carried secrets too dangerous for the public eye. In this interpretation, the Knights' mission transcended simple piety or power. It became a centuries-long stewardship of human destiny, ensuring that certain knowledge and certain lines of inheritance survived war, betrayal, and annihilation. To understand the Templars' guardianship of relics is to glimpse the convergence of history, legend, and conspiracy. Their influence extended far beyond the battlefield. Every fortress, every secret vault, and every preserved object tells a story of careful planning, extraordinary foresight, and an unwavering commitment to secrecy. It was a vigilance born of understanding that true power rarely lies in open display. It thrives in shadows, safeguarded by those willing to dedicate their lives to protection, study, and silence. Even today, the relics themselves, or their fragments, may be lost, hidden, or dispersed, yet the legacy of their guardians remains. Symbols carved into church walls, cryptic inscriptions in manuscripts, and architectural anomalies across Europe serve as breadcrumbs, hinting at the Templars' hidden knowledge and unbroken vigilance. Every story, every legend of a knight sworn to protect an object of great power, reinforces the idea that the Templars were not merely men of war. They were custodians of history, spirituality, and perhaps even human destiny itself. Their guardianship was not just a role. It was a philosophy, a way of seeing the world as a place where knowledge must be preserved, secrets must be protected, and sacred trust must be honored across generations, no matter the cost. Beyond their role as warriors and guardians of sacred relics, the Templars cultivated a deeper, more enigmatic expertise, the mastery of hidden knowledge. To the untrained eye, they were a disciplined military order, but to those who observed carefully, their influence extended into the esoteric, the coded, and the forbidden. They were said to possess maps that defied conventional geography, manuscripts encoded with symbols and numbers, and records of prophecies that seemed to predict events far into the future. Each piece of information, carefully guarded, was part of a vast, intricate web connecting the spiritual, the political, and the mystical. The Templars' ability to navigate these intertwined realms was what elevated them from mere knights to custodians of secrets that could shape empires. In the Mediterranean and the Levant, the Templars were known to explore ruins older than the Roman Empire itself. Ancient temples, underground passages, and long-abandoned sanctuaries offered glimpses into civilizations whose knowledge had been lost to time. They did not simply pillage these sites for wealth. Rather, they meticulously documented and codified the information they discovered. Maps with hidden paths, diagrams illustrating celestial alignments, and annotations describing sacred geometry were all part of a system designed to preserve knowledge that might otherwise vanish. These artifacts were not for the casual scholar. They were meant to be interpreted by those trained to see patterns where others saw only chaos. Some of the most tantalizing accounts suggest that the Templars were adept at encoding information within plain sight. Architectural designs of their fortresses, chapels, and commanderies often contained subtle clues. Spiral staircases aligned with solstices, carvings that mirrored constellations, and geometric motifs that conveyed knowledge of cosmology and navigation. These were not decorative flourishes, but deliberate markers, a silent language intended for those initiated into the Order's mysteries. The very stones of Templar structures seemed to whisper secrets, preserving a knowledge that could survive even the destruction of texts and manuscripts. Perhaps most fascinating were the Templars' cryptic manuscripts. Records allude to scrolls and codices that blended theological commentary with mathematical precision, diagrams of sacred relics, and accounts of ancient rites. Some historians argue these documents contained nothing more than standard monastic teachings, but countless accounts hint at something more profound: instructions for decoding hidden truths, directions to secret locations, and even records of bloodlines and mystical inheritances. It is said that certain texts were never written in conventional script at all, but rather in symbolic language that required specialized knowledge to interpret. This created layers of security. The knowledge existed, but only those trained in the order could access it. The Templars' maps are another source of intrigue. While many were practical, detailing safe passages, trade routes, or military positions, others allegedly contained far more than meets the eye. Some maps are rumored to mark locations of hidden treasures, ancient temples, and even sacred relics moved from the Holy Land. Others supposedly reveal patterns of ley lines, alignments, and places of spiritual significance, suggesting the Templars had an understanding of the earth and cosmos that went far beyond mere cartography. These were maps that intertwined geography with theology, strategy with mysticism, and power with secrecy. They were blueprints for a world that only the initiated could navigate safely. Equally compelling are reports that the Templars maintained a system of cross-references, linking texts, maps, and architectural symbols into a coherent framework. This network of knowledge allowed them to hide truths in plain sight. A fortress in France might mirror the design of one in Portugal. A chapel window might reflect patterns found in Jerusalem, and a codex stored in a secret vault could guide an initiate to a distant relic. The sophistication of this system is difficult to comprehend, particularly given the medieval context, yet it demonstrates the Templars' unparalleled ability to preserve and protect knowledge across continents and generations. Yet for all their secrecy, the Templars' work did not remain entirely hidden. Rumors of their encoded knowledge spread through whispers, and those outside the order began to suspect that the Knights were more than mere protectors of pilgrims. Some claimed that the Templars had discovered truths that threatened established power structures, knowledge that could challenge kings, destabilize empires, or redefine faith itself. Whether legend or reality, these suspicions contributed to the growing tension between the Templars and the authorities who ultimately orchestrated their downfall. Even after the arrests and executions in 1307, traces of this hidden knowledge persisted. Manuscripts resurfaced centuries later, often fragmented or altered, yet still hinting at the existence of a grand design. Scholars, treasure hunters, and mystics have long speculated that the Templars' coded maps and manuscripts were not destroyed but dispersed, hidden in private collections, monasteries, or secret vaults. The idea that some of this knowledge might still exist, waiting to be deciphered, continues to fuel fascination and speculation to this day. The allure of Templar knowledge lies not just in its potential historical value, but in the broader implication of what it represents. Here was an order capable of combining faith, intellect, and secrecy in a way that allowed them to preserve information far beyond what ordinary chroniclers could comprehend. They created a framework that linked the spiritual with the temporal, the mystical with the practical, ensuring that even in the face of annihilation, the essence of their understanding could survive. Each map, symbol, and manuscript is a fragment of a puzzle, a tantalizing clue that invites modern seekers to imagine the depth and sophistication of their hidden world. Ultimately, the Templars' mastery of secret knowledge was both their strength and their vulnerability. It set them apart, giving them unprecedented influence, but it also made them a target. Their ability to see beyond the surface, to perceive the hidden patterns of history and power, threatened those who preferred control through ignorance. Yet, in their careful preservation, in their encoded maps and manuscripts, The Templars left a legacy that continues to inspire awe, curiosity, and a relentless search for truth. Theirs was not just a story of swords and battles. It was a story of intellect, secrecy, and a timeless quest to protect and understand the hidden forces that shape our world. The dawn of October 1307 was ordinary enough in the streets of Paris. It concealed a storm that would forever alter the course of history. At the heart of this upheaval stood the Knights Templar, an order that had risen from humble beginnings to wield unprecedented influence across Europe and the Holy Land. Their wealth, their fortresses, their knowledge, both worldly and esoteric, had made them untouchable for decades. But power, no matter how carefully guarded, attracts envy, suspicion, and fear. King Philip IV of France, burdened by debt and wary of an organization that answered to no one but its own masters and the Pope, saw in the Templars a threat that could no longer be tolerated. What followed was a calculated strike, a purge designed to annihilate the order both physically and symbolically. The arrests were swift and meticulously orchestrated. On a single day, the king's men moved through Paris and other major cities, seizing Templars from their homes and fortresses. Knights, who had once been revered for their courage and devotion, found themselves chained, interrogated, and cast into dungeons that smelled of despair and damp stone. The official charges were blasphemy, heresy, and immoral conduct, accusations that, while shocking, were carefully chosen to justify extreme measures in the eyes of the public and the church. Yet the truth behind these charges was far more complex, a tangled web of political ambition, financial greed, and fear of the order's hidden power. Philip IV's motivations were clear. France owed immense sums to the Templars, debts accumulated during years of warfare and diplomacy. By eliminating the order, he could seize their wealth and consolidate power over both the church and the nobility. Yet beyond finances, there was the matter of control. The Templars answered only to their Grand Master and, ostensibly, to the Pope. Their independence was intolerable to monarchs who demanded unquestioned loyalty. In this sense, the purge was both a fiscal strategy and a statement of dominance, an unambiguous demonstration that no institution, no matter how revered, could operate beyond the king's reach. The methods used to extract confessions from the Templars were brutal, calculated, and designed to break both body and spirit. Knights were subjected to torture, the strappado, racks, and prolonged deprivation, until they named false deeds and blasphemies that could then be recorded as evidence. Many recanted these forced confessions under duress, but the damage had been done. Chroniclers later wrote of knights confessing to heretical rites, worshipping idols, and committing acts that would have shocked all of Christendom. Whether true or fabricated, these confessions were disseminated strategically, shaping public perception and legitimizing the order's destruction. Yet the fall of the Templars was not instantaneous. Even as arrests spread and castles were seized, whispers of escape and survival circulated. Some knights vanished into the night, taking with them knowledge, treasures, and secrets that had been safeguarded for centuries. Others sought refuge in distant lands, Scotland, Portugal, and the remote reaches of the Alps, where sympathetic nobles or secretive allies provided sanctuary. These fugitives carried more than swords. They carried a legacy of intelligence, guardianship, and esoteric knowledge that would later fuel legends of hidden bloodlines and secret societies. The image of the Templars as annihilated was only partially true. In reality, fragments of the order survived, scattered but not entirely extinguished. The trials that followed were public spectacles, designed to humiliate and delegitimize the order. In courtrooms and cathedral halls, knights were paraded, accusations read aloud, and sentences delivered with grim finality. Executions were carried out for dramatic effect. Burning at the stake, strangulation, and public shaming, all intended to deter loyalty and erase the Templars' presence from collective memory. Yet even in their suffering, the Templars demonstrated a stoicism that inspired awe. Many refused to curse their vows. Many recanted under pressure, yet maintained private loyalty to the order's ideals. Their endurance became part of the mythos, a testament to their discipline, courage, and unwavering commitment to a cause that transcended life itself. The eradication of the order, however, extended beyond the knights themselves. Their estates, libraries, and treasures were seized, distributed among monarchs and other religious institutions. Documents and codices were destroyed or hidden, ensuring that much of their knowledge would vanish from public record. Fortresses were repurposed, symbols erased, and archives redacted, leaving only fragments of the Templars' history for future generations to discover. This deliberate suppression was as much a part of their downfall as the executions. The erasure of memory ensured that the Templars' influence would endure primarily as rumor, legend, and mystery, rather than a visible reality. Yet even amidst destruction, there was resilience. Some evidence suggests that the Templars anticipated such a purge. Secret vaults, hidden passages, and encoded manuscripts may have been designed precisely to outlast persecution. Strategic alliances and loyal families ensured that certain treasures, knowledge, and possibly even bloodlines were preserved. In this sense, the fall of the Templars was both an ending and a beginning. While the visible order crumbled, the invisible network of secrets and survival strategies endured, silently shaping the course of European history in ways that would remain hidden for centuries. The dramatic tension of the Templars' fall lies in this paradox. Outwardly, the order was destroyed, its power obliterated, and its members either dead or imprisoned. Yet beneath the surface, the seeds of survival, encoded knowledge, secret bloodlines, and undisclosed treasures were already taking root. The contrast between the official narrative and the whispers of hidden continuity is what gives the story its enduring allure. The Templars, though publicly defeated, became spectral figures, absent in presence, yet ever present in influence, inspiring both fear and fascination. Reflecting on the fall of the Templars, it is impossible to ignore the broader implications. Here was a group whose combination of spiritual authority, military prowess, and esoteric knowledge provoked one of the most calculated purges in medieval history. Their destruction highlights the fragility of power, the dangers of independence, and the lengths to which those in authority will go to control knowledge. Yet the story also emphasizes resilience, the ability of ideas, symbols, and secretive networks to survive even the most violent attempts at eradication. The Templars' fall is not merely a tale of conquest and punishment. It is a story of endurance, secrecy, and the persistent human drive to protect knowledge against overwhelming odds. Even centuries later, the echoes of that October morning continue to reverberate. Scholars, treasure hunters, and conspiracy theorists have scoured Europe for traces of hidden vaults, encoded manuscripts, and undiscovered relics. Some claim that the Templars' wealth vanished into secret locations, others that their knowledge survived in coded form, passed down through hidden bloodlines. The dramatic fall of the order, instead of silencing their story, amplified it, leaving a trail of intrigue that invites us to question what really happened, what was lost, and what might have survived. The Templars' final hours in France, therefore, were not just an ending. They were the crucible in which legend was forged. In a shadow of persecution, secrecy became even more essential, knowledge more precious, and the mythos of the Templars more enduring. Their fall is remembered not solely for the brutality inflicted upon them, but for the tantalizing possibility that their secrets, safeguarded through centuries of cunning and loyalty, still linger, hidden, encrypted, and waiting for those who dare to uncover them. Even as the Templar strongholds were stormed and their leaders imprisoned, whispers of escape and survival began to circulate like shadows in the night. Not all knights were caught in the sweeping arrests of 1307, and those who evaded capture became the invisible threads weaving the continuation of the order's legacy. The sudden collapse of their public presence did not mean the complete erasure of their influence. It merely forced the Templars to shift from open power to clandestine survival. What followed was a period of secrecy, exile, and reinvention, a shadowed chapter in history where the order's knowledge, treasures, and perhaps bloodlines were carefully safeguarded against the prying eyes of kings, popes, and inquisitors. The surviving knights dispersed across Europe, seeking refuge in the corners of kingdoms where suspicion was less pronounced or loyalty could be quietly secured. In Scotland, they found shelter among nobles sympathetic to their cause, allies who understood the value of an order devoted not only to military prowess but to wisdom and guardianship. There, hidden in the remote highlands and fortified estates, the Templars could continue their work, preserving texts, relics, and knowledge too dangerous to leave exposed. Legends speak of secret councils convened under moonlight, where surviving knights strategized not to conquer, but to protect, to ensure that the essence of their order would endure in silence. Portugal, too, became a haven for Templars seeking a new beginning. King Denis, aware of the order's strategic and spiritual value, offered sanctuary to those fleeing persecution. Here, the Templars were allowed to reorganize, often under new names or merged with other military orders, continuing their operations under a guise that allowed them to function without attracting the fatal attention that had decimated their brethren in France. Fortresses and estates once under Templar control became safe repositories for relics, manuscripts, and treasures, hidden from the authorities yet maintained with meticulous care. These secret enclaves preserved not only material wealth, but the encoded knowledge that had been central to the Templars' mission. The Alps, with their rugged, nearly impenetrable terrain, provided another refuge. In isolated monasteries and remote castles, knights could continue their practices of preservation and study, far from the reach of inquisitors. The natural fortifications of these regions were complemented by the Templars' skill in concealment. Hidden chambers, false walls, and secret passageways ensured that even if discovered, the most important objects, sacred relics, maps, or manuscripts, could remain protected. In these mountain retreats, the order evolved from a visible military force into a hidden network of guardians, continuing their work quietly, often under assumed identities, yet maintaining the structure and discipline that had defined them for centuries. This period of exile was not only a time of physical survival, but also a period of strategic adaptation. The Templars were forced to refine their methods of secrecy, creating sophisticated systems of communication and coded instructions that could guide future generations. Knowledge was compartmentalized. Only the most trusted knights were allowed access to the full scope of the order's secrets. Others carried partial information, enough to protect what they held, but insufficient to reveal the greater design. This system ensured that even if one group was captured, the entirety of the Templars' hidden knowledge would remain intact, dispersed but unbroken. Many historians have noted the remarkable continuity of the Templars' influence during this period, despite the apparent destruction of their order. Nobility across Europe seemed inexplicably connected to Templar ideals, and certain architectural, symbolic, and genealogical traces hint at ongoing custodianship. Some believe that surviving knights integrated themselves into royal courts, acting as advisors, financiers, or spiritual counselors, subtly shaping politics and policy while avoiding direct confrontation with authorities. Their ability to operate in shadows, blending into the structures they had once openly dominated, ensured that the Templars' legacy was preserved even as their public presence vanished. The notion of hidden councils and clandestine assemblies during this time has fueled countless legends. In secluded estates or forgotten monasteries, knights reportedly continued to meet in secret, debating strategy, guarding relics, and maintaining the continuity of their rituals and teachings. These gatherings were not merely ceremonial. They were practical exercises in preserving the order's mission. Manuals, maps, and sacred objects were transported carefully, sometimes across hundreds of miles, to locations known only to a select few. Each step was taken with foresight, understanding that the survival of the Templars depended on discretion, patience, and unwavering loyalty. Yet survival was not without peril. The forces that had crushed the order in France continued to monitor Europe, seeking traces of knights who might rekindle the order's influence. Captured Templars faced interrogation and execution, while others navigated treacherous political landscapes, relying on secrecy and the loyalty of sympathetic allies. The constant threat of exposure made the Templars' continued existence precarious, forcing them to develop a network of trusted families and bloodlines who could inherit both knowledge and material assets. In this way, survival extended beyond individuals to lineages, ensuring that the Templars' mission persisted even when direct continuity was impossible. Legends of hidden treasures and sacred relics preserved during this exile period are abundant. Some suggest that the Templars transported gold, sacred texts, and fragments of holy relics to secret locations, carefully cataloged and encoded so that only future generations could retrieve them. Others believe that certain bloodlines, safeguarded by the surviving knights, carried encoded knowledge or spiritual authority that could be unlocked only when the time was right. Whether these accounts are entirely factual or amplified by myth, they underscore the enduring perception that the Templars were not simply defeated. They had anticipated disaster and taken measures to preserve what was most precious. By the end of the 14th century, the Templars, though fragmented, had established a covert network that stretched across Europe. Their physical presence had diminished, yet their influence, their custodianship of sacred objects, and their hidden knowledge survived. Scotland, Portugal, and the Alpine refuges became nodes in a broader tapestry of secrecy, ensuring that the order's essence remained intact. It was a transformation from visible power to hidden guardianship, from a public military order to a covert society, capable of surviving centuries of persecution and upheaval. The story of the Templars' escape and exile is a testament to their foresight, discipline, and strategic brilliance. It is a chapter that highlights resilience in the face of annihilation, demonstrating that power does not always reside in swords or armies, but in the ability to preserve knowledge, protect sacred relics, and maintain continuity across generations. Their flight from persecution was not merely a retreat. It was an intentional, calculated preservation of legacy, ensuring that the Templars' influence would endure, hidden from the eyes of those who sought to erase them. In this exile, the seeds of myth, legend, and speculation were sown, forming the foundation for centuries of stories that continue to captivate and intrigue us today. Among the most enduring and provocative whispers surrounding the Templars is the notion that their influence did not vanish with the Order's public destruction. Instead, some historians, chroniclers, and mystics suggest that the Templars' true legacy may have survived in the form of bloodlines, carefully protected lineages that carried not only wealth and sacred relics, but knowledge so profound it could alter the course of history. These bloodlines, shrouded in secrecy and obscured by centuries of myth, represent a continuation of the Order's mission, a hidden thread connecting past and present through the carefully preserved DNA of those chosen to safeguard its deepest truths. The concept of Templar bloodlines is intertwined with the very nature of the Order. While publicly their mission was to protect pilgrims and defend the Holy Land, whispers suggest a far more complex purpose: the safeguarding of knowledge and spiritual authority through generations. Some scholars posit that the Templars understood that physical power could be destroyed, but genetic and familial legacy could endure beyond persecution. This theory implies that the knights selected specific families or even orchestrated marriages to ensure that particular traits, whether spiritual, intellectual, or mystical, would persist. The survival of these bloodlines, hidden behind the veil of nobility, clergy, or discreet alliances, may explain why certain European families maintained influence long after the Templars themselves seemed extinct. Evidence for these claims is, naturally, fragmentary and often circumstantial. Medieval genealogies, obscure references in royal archives, and anomalous alliances between noble families hint at the presence of Templar influence behind the scenes. Some historians note patterns in lineage, such as unexpected inheritances or unexplained prominence, that coincide with former Templar strongholds or areas where the order was known to have fled. The recurrence of certain symbols, heraldic emblems, and cryptic motifs across unrelated families has fueled speculation that these were markers, subtle indications of a shared Templar heritage, meant to be recognized only by those initiated into the secret. One of the most compelling aspects of these theories lies in the intersection of legend and bloodline. The Holy Grail, often romanticized as a chalice, has been interpreted by some scholars and mystics as a metaphor for lineage itself, a vessel through which sacred or powerful blood was preserved. If this interpretation is correct, the Templars' custodianship extended beyond physical relics into the very essence of human inheritance. Certain families may have been entrusted with this sacred responsibility, carrying encoded knowledge of the Templars' mission within their lineage. Across centuries, these families would act as stewards, maintaining the continuity of secrets that could never be entrusted to the public or to political powers that might misuse them. Accounts of surviving Templars supporting or marrying into noble families lend further intrigue. Chronicles suggest that in regions such as Portugal, Scotland, and northern France, the order carefully placed its members within influential households, ensuring protection for both wealth and knowledge. These unions may have been pragmatic, securing safe harbor for Templar treasures, or symbolic, embedding the order's ideals and wisdom within the blood of future generations. Over time, the lines between myth, legend, and historical reality blurred, yet the recurring patterns suggest intentionality rather than coincidence. Families that emerged from these unions often carried with them privileges, influence, and access to knowledge unavailable to the wider world, a hidden inheritance of the Templars' foresight. The notion of a hidden Templar lineage is further supported by the survival of certain manuscripts and coded documents. Some texts, preserved through centuries in private collections, monasteries, and secret societies, appear to contain instructions, prophecies, or rituals linked not just to spiritual practice, but to bloodline preservation. References to guardianship of heirs, coded instructions for secrecy, and symbolic representations of lineage hint at a deliberate strategy by the Templars to ensure that even in exile and persecution, the core essence of their order would endure through selected descendants. These texts often blend theology, numerology, and genealogy, creating a complex lattice of information accessible only to those initiated into the tradition. Modern genealogical research has attempted to trace these lineages, with some researchers identifying families across Europe whose ancestry may connect to Templar Knights. While these claims are frequently speculative, they're bolstered by recurring motifs, unusual names, heraldic symbols reminiscent of the Templar cross, and unexplained connections between seemingly disparate noble houses. Whether these traces represent deliberate preservation, coincidence, or mythologized memory is difficult to determine, but the patterns themselves are compelling, inviting further exploration. The possibility that descendants of the Templars exist today, carrying within them both a genetic and cultural inheritance, adds an almost mythic dimension to history, blurring the line between past and present. Beyond genealogy, the idea of Templar bloodlines resonates in cultural memory and folklore. Across centuries, tales persist of secret societies, mysterious advisors to kings, and clandestine guardians of sacred knowledge. Some claim that these figures are modern manifestations of the Templar lineage, descendants who continue the order's mission in subtle, unseen ways. Their presence is often inferred rather than documented, whispered in legends of hidden wealth, unusual influence, or inexplicable foresight. This connection between historical Templars and modern guardians reinforces the notion that bloodlines were not merely symbolic, but a strategic vessel for survival, ensuring that the order's wisdom and authority could endure through human continuity. If these theories hold even a fraction of truth, they suggest a deliberate strategy by the Templars to protect what could not be held in stone or parchment alone. Physical destruction, exile, and persecution could erase fortresses, manuscripts, and members, but carefully cultivated bloodlines could preserve essence, influence, and secrets across centuries. These lineages would be the invisible infrastructure of the Templar legacy, quietly shaping events, guiding successors, and maintaining the Order's mission in the shadows of history. The survival of these bloodlines represents both a triumph of foresight and a testament to the strategic genius of the Order, whose influence extends far beyond battles fought and treasures accumulated. Ultimately, the mystery of Templar bloodlines is inseparable from the allure of the Order itself. It is a story that blends history, legend, and conspiracy into a tapestry of enduring intrigue. These hidden lineages, if they exist, are the silent heirs of a vision that transcended immediate survival, connecting the medieval knights to a continuum of influence that stretches across centuries. The idea that the Templars' secrets could survive not in documents or castles, but in the very blood of living descendants, transforms our understanding of their legacy. It is no longer simply a tale of warriors, relics, and esoteric knowledge. It is a story of continuity, survival, and the extraordinary foresight required to preserve a mission against the tide of time, persecution, and history itself. The Templars were masters not only of strategy and guardianship, but of subtlety, of encoding their knowledge into forms that could survive persecution, exile, and the passage of centuries. Symbols, architecture, and manuscripts became more than decoration or record. They were a language of secrecy, a means to communicate truths that could not risk exposure. Every fortress, chapel, and commandery bore marks of this hidden dialogue. Carvings on stones, geometric patterns in floor tiles, and inscriptions in secluded corners were all part of a deliberate system, meant to transmit knowledge only to those trained to interpret it. To the uninitiated, these signs appeared ornamental, but to the trained eye, they were a map of understanding, a bridge connecting sacred relics, hidden manuscripts, and the lineage the Templars sought to preserve. One of the most striking features of Templar symbolism is its consistency across time and space. From the Levant to France, Portugal, and the British Isles, certain motifs recur. The eight-pointed cross, serpentine shapes entwined with Christian iconography, stylized depictions of celestial bodies, and cryptic inscriptions in Latin, Greek, or coded scripts. These were not mere aesthetic choices. They were intentional markers, a universal language understood within the Order. Scholars and cryptographers have long speculated that some of these symbols encode mathematical principles, astronomical alignments, or instructions for locating hidden relics. Others suggest that these motifs reference spiritual truths, connecting the material world to esoteric cosmology. Templar architecture itself is a repository of hidden knowledge. Fortresses and chapels often feature peculiar alignments, staircases oriented towards solstices, windows that cast symbolic shadows at specific times of the year, and sanctuaries with proportions based on sacred geometry. Even the simplest of structures could contain multiple layers of meaning, guiding initiates to concealed chambers or indicating the location of relics long thought lost. In some cases, carvings of knights or beasts were placed not as ornamentation, but as directional markers, their gestures pointing the way to hidden passageways or emphasizing encoded messages within the design. Each structure, from its foundations to its highest tower, was a testament to the Templars' meticulous integration of secrecy and function. Manuscripts further exemplify their mastery of concealment. Templar texts often blended theological commentary with numerical codes, symbolic diagrams, and obscure references to places, objects, and lineages. On the surface, a codex might appear to be a treatise on piety or history, but careful study can reveal layers of encrypted knowledge. Some manuscripts utilize ciphers based on alphabets, numerology, or even astrological patterns designed to obscure their content from anyone not initiated into the Templars' interpretive methods. Others employ allegory, embedding instructions for guardianship or ritual practice within seemingly mundane narrative passages. These texts were not merely repositories of information. They were active instruments, capable of guiding successors to hidden knowledge and reinforcing the continuity of the Order's secret mission. The interplay between symbols, architecture, and manuscripts suggests a comprehensive system of communication that transcends conventional record-keeping. A hidden pattern in a floor tile might correspond to a line of text in a manuscript. A carved motif on a chapel wall could align with a celestial event referenced in Templar records. This multi-layered encoding reflects a sophistication that challenges modern assumptions about medieval knowledge. It also emphasizes the Templars' foresight. Understanding that persecution might scatter the order, they ensure that their knowledge could survive in fragments, reconstructible by those trained to see the connections. Even outside Europe, there are hints that Templar symbols influenced local traditions, secret societies, and esoteric practices. The recurrence of certain motifs in regions historically linked to Templar activity, Portugal, Scotland, and parts of the Middle East, suggests a deliberate preservation of meaning across borders and generations. Initiates may have carried encoded instructions through apprenticeships, familial lines, or even clandestine rituals, ensuring that knowledge remained protected even as the order itself was forced into hiding. This continuity of symbolic language reinforces the idea that the Templars' mission was never entirely extinguished. It adapted, survived, and subtly guided those who were entrusted with its understanding. The hidden language of the Templars also served as a safeguard. By encoding critical knowledge in symbols, architecture, and manuscripts, the Order protected it from hostile forces, inquisitors, and opportunistic rulers. Even if a fortress fell or a manuscript was confiscated, the information could not be easily interpreted by outsiders. It required both insight and initiation, creating a natural barrier against misuse. This method of preservation reflects a strategic genius. The Templars understood that knowledge itself is power, and that true guardianship requires concealment, discipline, and patience. Perhaps most intriguing is the suggestion that some symbols and encoded texts were intended to preserve not only knowledge of relics and geography, but of lineage and sacred inheritance. Allegories and manuscripts hint at bloodlines, guardianship, and the continuity of secret wisdom through generations. Architectural cues in castles and commanderies may mark hidden vaults or passages linked to these lineages. In this way, the Templars' hidden language was not merely practical but deeply personal and spiritual, a means of safeguarding their legacy, ensuring that even in exile and persecution, the essence of their mission, knowledge, authority, and continuity, could survive in subtle, almost invisible ways. The Templars' mastery of coded communication demonstrates a level of sophistication that transcends conventional medieval practice. It reflects an understanding of human psychology, the power of secrecy, and the endurance of ideas across time. Their symbols and manuscripts invite modern explorers to look beyond the obvious, to perceive layers of meaning hidden in plain sight. Every motif carved in stone, every pattern in architecture, every coded passage in a manuscript is a fragment of a larger design, a testament to an order that knew the value of knowledge and the necessity of preserving it across generations. In contemplating the Templars' hidden language, one is forced to recognize the order not merely as knights or protectors, but as architects of secrecy, curators of knowledge, and guardians of legacy. Their symbols, their architecture, and their manuscripts form a silent network, spanning centuries and continents, inviting those with patience and insight to reconstruct the story that persecution attempted to erase. It is in this convergence of strategy, spirituality, and encoded wisdom that the Templars' true genius reveals itself, offering a glimpse into a world where power is measured not by swords or armies, but by the endurance of knowledge and the preservation of secrets too dangerous for the uninitiated. Long after the Templars vanished from public view, their influence may not have disappeared at all. Evidence suggests that whispers of their power continued to echo through European society, subtly shaping politics, wealth, and culture in ways few could recognize. Some historians argue that their wealth, amassed through banking, trade, and land ownership, did not simply vanish when the order was suppressed. Instead, it is theorized that key members and loyal families managed to safeguard portions of their fortune, passing it quietly down through generations, hidden from the prying eyes of kings and inquisitors alike. Over time, these families may have integrated themselves into emerging centers of power, their influence cloaked under layers of legitimacy, social status, and anonymity. The notion of Templar descendants quietly guiding events from the shadows is not mere fantasy. Consider, for example, certain European noble families whose rise to prominence coincides with the fall of the order. Marriages, inheritances, and political alliances could have served as strategic means of preserving not only wealth, but also the ideological and mystical knowledge the Templars held dear. There's a growing body of circumstantial evidence suggesting that some of these families maintained secret societies and informal networks, designed to ensure that the Templar legacy endured beyond the reach of persecution. These networks were highly selective, often operating with extreme discretion, and they may have left subtle traces in the social and political landscapes of their regions. Modern researchers and conspiracy theorists alike point to organizations that claim, explicitly or implicitly, Templar heritage. Some of these societies adopt the symbols, rituals, or hierarchical structures reminiscent of the medieval order. While mainstream historians often dismiss these claims as fanciful or symbolic, deeper investigation reveals a more complex reality. Some records suggest these groups may have preserved manuscripts, esoteric teachings, or coded genealogical knowledge that hint at a direct connection to the original order. Even a mere possibility that such connections exist challenges the conventional narrative that the Templars were entirely extinguished. The very idea that someone, somewhere, may still carry the bloodline or knowledge of the order injects an almost tangible tension into the historical record. These modern echoes of the Templars are not limited to secret societies or noble families. There are intriguing instances of influential individuals, sometimes in politics, finance, or intellectual circles, whose ancestral lines trace back to regions where Templar activity was particularly strong. Some genealogical researchers have identified patterns of naming, land inheritance, and social alignment that suggest more than coincidence. While direct evidence is rare and often circumstantial, the patterns are compelling enough to warrant deeper exploration. The concept of hidden influence, while difficult to prove in traditional academic terms, has an undeniable psychological and narrative power that captivates those who study the Templars. Beyond individuals, the Templar legacy may manifest in the very structures and institutions that dominate European life today. Some theorists suggest that early banking systems, charitable foundations, and civic organizations were shaped, at least in part, by Templar methodologies and philosophies. Even if the original order no longer existed, their ideas and organizational principles could have been quietly transmitted across centuries. This creates a fascinating tension between the visible, documented history and the hidden currents that may have guided decision-making and cultural evolution in subtle yet profound ways. It is as though the Templars left an invisible hand on the levers of power, a whispering presence shaping events behind the scenes. Perhaps most compelling are the rumors of covert meetings, coded correspondence, and symbols embedded in architecture that signal Templar affiliation. Castles, cathedrals, and civic buildings across Europe bear traces of markings and designs that some claim are linked to the Order's secret teachings. These physical remnants, when combined with genealogical and historical research, paint a picture of a persistent, almost ghostly influence. It is a world in which the Templar legacy is not erased by history, but carefully concealed, requiring careful observation and interpretation to uncover. The idea that a medieval order could leave such a lasting, subtle imprint on the modern world is at once thrilling and unsettling. Even the public fascination with secret societies may be part of this enduring legacy. Stories of mysterious orders, clandestine gatherings, and hidden councils echo the narrative of the Templars, keeping their memory alive in both folklore and scholarship. This fascination has real-world consequences, influencing the way power, secrecy, and legitimacy are perceived in society. It is as though the Templars, though physically absent, continue to exert influence through culture, myth, and collective imagination. Their survival is therefore not merely a question of bloodlines, but of ideas, symbols, and an ethos that transcends time. The more we examine the evidence, the more it becomes clear that the Templar story is not confined to history books or dusty archives. It is a living narrative woven into the fabric of modern European society, and perhaps even the broader world. Whether through the secret preservation of wealth, the continuation of bloodlines, or the subtle shaping of institutions, the Templars may have left behind a blueprint for survival that continues to manifest today. This hidden influence challenges our understanding of history and power, inviting us to question who truly controls the levers of society and what ancient knowledge might still guide our present. In tracing these modern echoes, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe and unease. The Templars, once thought vanquished, may have simply adapted, leaving a legacy that blends history with myth, reality with speculation. Their influence may be quiet, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable when patterns are observed carefully. Each discovery, whether a genealogical link, a symbolic artifact, or a trace of financial influence, adds another layer to a story that refuses to be fully explained. It is a narrative that spans centuries, compelling us to look beyond the surface of recorded history and into the hidden corridors where the true Templar legacy may still reside. By examining these subtle traces, we begin to appreciate the remarkable resilience of the Order and the ways in which its influence has been woven into the very fabric of modern life. The Templar legacy, far from being lost, has adapted and persisted, a hidden current flowing quietly beneath the surface of society. Those who follow these threads today are not just historians or curious researchers. They're seekers, explorers of a hidden world that challenges our assumptions and teases us with the possibility that some of history's greatest secrets have never truly been lost, only carefully guarded. Long before the Templars were officially disbanded, whispers circulated of prophecies and warnings carefully encoded within their secret texts and rituals. These were not idle musings or superstitious musings, but cryptic messages passed down within the order, intended to guide, warn, or perhaps protect their descendants and the knowledge they safeguarded. Scholars and esoteric researchers alike have long speculated that these prophecies were far-reaching, extending beyond mere political predictions, touching on spiritual, cultural, and even cosmic events. The Templars, it seems, may have perceived patterns in history invisible to the ordinary observer, and through these prophecies sought to preserve their understanding of the forces shaping the world. Many of these prophecies were couched in symbolism so intricate that only those initiated into the order's highest mysteries could decipher them. Some were encoded in manuscripts, hidden in the margins of religious texts, or woven into the architecture of the buildings they constructed. Every symbol, every motif, every obscure reference could carry multiple layers of meaning, offering guidance to those who knew how to interpret it. For centuries, these messages remained inaccessible to the uninitiated, leaving tantalizing fragments of knowledge scattered across Europe and beyond. The very act of deciphering these prophecies is like piecing together a puzzle whose corners have been hidden from the world for hundreds of years. One striking feature of Templar prophecies is their focus on the cyclical nature of history. They seem to anticipate not just immediate threats to the order or the political landscape of medieval Europe, but also far-reaching shifts in power, religion, and human behavior. Certain cryptic passages hint at upheavals, wars, and revolutions, while others suggest the rise and fall of influential families and institutions. Scholars who have attempted to map these predictions against recorded history have found unsettling correspondences. Though not precise in a modern, scientific sense, these prophecies suggest a remarkable understanding of the rhythms of human events, as if the Templars were attempting to communicate knowledge that transcends conventional chronology. Another layer of these prophecies concerns the Templar bloodlines themselves. Some texts hint at the survival of key families, suggesting that these descendants would play pivotal roles in preserving knowledge, guiding societies, or influencing events in subtle yet profound ways. The language used in these writings is deliberately ambiguous, speaking of guardians, chosen heirs, and hidden legacies without revealing identities. This secrecy has fueled speculation for centuries, as researchers attempt to trace genealogical lines, hidden symbols, and coded messages that could validate the existence of such bloodlines today. It is a fascinating interplay of mystery, history, and human curiosity, bridging the gap between legend and tangible reality. Beyond politics and lineage, certain prophecies also touch on spiritual evolution and the role of knowledge in shaping human consciousness. The Templars were not merely warriors or bankers. They were also students of the sacred, custodians of wisdom they believed could elevate society if preserved and applied correctly. Cryptic references to light and darkness, cycles of knowledge, and the balance of human intention suggest a worldview that integrated the spiritual and temporal realms. These messages may have been intended to warn future generations about the consequences of corruption, greed, or the misuse of knowledge, embedding a moral and philosophical dimension within secrecy. Some researchers argue that the Templars' prophetic insights were designed not just as warnings, but as roadmaps. They were carefully constructed to guide successors in navigating a treacherous world, ensuring the preservation of hidden wisdom and bloodlines. Maps, relics, and coded instructions might have contained keys to unlock these predictions, but only those equipped with the right understanding or access could interpret them correctly. The very act of survival, then, depended not just on secrecy, but on an ability to read between the lines, to see the connections that others could not perceive. It is as if the Templars created a living legacy, one that would awaken only when the time was right and the heir capable of understanding emerged. The tension between prophecy and skepticism is part of what makes the study of Templar predictions so compelling. Mainstream historians often dismiss these claims as myth, allegory, or coincidence, yet the patterns that emerge from careful analysis are difficult to ignore entirely. From the seemingly mundane references in medieval documents to the intricate symbolism in Templar seals, every fragment is treated as a potential clue, a thread that could connect the past with hidden truths in the present. It is this delicate balance between evidence and speculation that keeps the story alive, inviting viewers to consider the possibility that history may contain layers that are deliberately obscured. Even the surviving architecture of the Templars may contain echoes of their prophetic vision. Gothic cathedrals, hidden chambers, and ancient fortresses are sometimes claimed to hold spatial codes, alignment with celestial bodies, or symbolic inscriptions that mirror the predictions found in manuscripts. Observers who study these structures with an eye for geometry, astronomy, or numerology find patterns that suggest intention rather than coincidence. Each stone, each arch, each hidden alcove could carry meaning, serving as a silent testament to the Order's foresight and its efforts to preserve a legacy of warning and guidance. Modern fascination with these prophecies continues to grow, especially as researchers attempt to link Templar messages to contemporary events. From shifts in political power to financial upheavals and cultural transformations, some theorists see echoes of the ancient predictions in today's world. Whether these connections are genuine, coincidental, or the result of pattern seeking is difficult to determine, yet the possibility itself is enough to maintain the allure of Templar secrets. It reinforces the idea that history is never fully settled, that hidden knowledge may lie just beneath the surface, waiting for the right eyes to perceive it. Ultimately, the Templar prophecies serve as both warning and invitation. They remind us of the fragility of knowledge, the impermanence of power, and the potential of human foresight. They challenge conventional narratives, urging us to question the apparent end of the Order and to consider the possibility that their vision, encoded in symbols, texts, and relics, may continue to shape events even today. These cryptic messages, whether mystical or practical, preserve the sense of a living, breathing legacy, one that transcends centuries and whispers across time to those who are willing to listen carefully enough. By exploring these prophecies, we step closer to understanding the Templars not merely as a historical footnote, but as guardians of secrets with a vision that stretched far beyond the medieval world. Their warnings and predictions, layered with complexity and hidden meaning, reveal an order deeply attuned to the currents of history, power, and human nature. Each fragment we uncover brings us closer to the possibility that the Templar story is not over, that their foresight and the knowledge they safeguarded remain, hidden in plain sight, awaiting discovery by those who dare to look beyond the surface of history. Beneath the surface of European landscapes lie secrets few have ever glimpsed. Hidden beneath castles, buried beneath abbeys, and tucked away in remote countryside estates are places that some researchers believe were carefully chosen by the Templars as sanctuaries for their most precious knowledge and treasures. These hidden locations were not random. They were selected for their strategic advantage, secrecy, and symbolic significance. Many were deliberately constructed to be difficult to find or access, employing labyrinthine designs, false chambers, and coded markings meant to mislead outsiders. To uncover them requires more than maps or historical records. It demands intuition, insight, and a willingness to read the land itself as if it were a page in a secret manuscript. Some of these sites are rumored to contain relics of immense spiritual and historical value. Objects linked to the Holy Grail, sacred texts, or artifacts that predate the medieval world. Others may have served as libraries of esoteric knowledge, storing cryptic manuscripts, alchemical recipes, or ritual implements meant to guide the Templars' descendants in the future. The secrecy of these locations was maintained with meticulous care, often protected by local allies or loyal families who understood the stakes. Over centuries, natural disasters, wars, and simple human forgetfulness have obscured the precise locations. But subtle clues remain, embedded in architectural patterns, heraldic symbols, and cryptic inscriptions that hint at what lies beneath. Some researchers argue that maps themselves, often disguised as decorative or functional objects, contained encoded directions to these hidden sites. These were not maps in the conventional sense, but rather layered puzzles requiring careful interpretation. Geographic features, celestial alignments, and symbolic markers might all combine to point the way, but only to those who possess the knowledge to decode them. Historians and treasure hunters alike have devoted lifetimes to deciphering these enigmas, combing through archives and examining ruins for evidence of concealed entrances or concealed chambers. In some cases, entire estates and villages were aligned according to patterns meant to obscure or protect the true purpose of a location. Evidence of such secretive design is scattered across Europe. Gothic cathedrals, once thought to be solely religious or decorative, are now recognized as potential repositories of encoded information. Hidden compartments, unusual staircases, and odd spatial orientations suggest that some structures may have served dual purposes, both as public monuments and as private sanctuaries for the Templars' most guarded secrets. Even underground networks, tunnels, crypts, and forgotten cellars may have been carefully engineered to store treasures safely, hidden from authorities and prying eyes. Every stone could carry a message, a symbol, or a direction, challenging modern observers to decipher the language of secrecy long lost to mainstream history. The Templars' use of hidden locations was not limited to Europe. Some theorists suggest that members of the order who fled persecution may have established secret sanctuaries elsewhere, carrying treasures and knowledge across borders and even oceans. Remote islands, isolated monasteries, and coastal strongholds might have served as safe havens for those who continued the Templar mission in secret. Legends abound of treasures buried on distant shores, of coded journals referencing distant lands, and of mysterious journeys that defy conventional historical explanation. While concrete evidence is scarce, the consistency of these stories across regions suggests a deliberate effort to preserve and protect Templar assets and knowledge far beyond the reach of authorities. What makes these hidden locations especially fascinating is the interplay between practicality and symbolism. The Templars were deeply attuned to both the material and spiritual significance of their surroundings. Certain mountains, rivers, or caves were believed to possess sacred qualities or energetic alignments, chosen deliberately to protect not just physical treasures, but the spiritual essence of their mission. In some instances, the locations themselves became part of a coded narrative, with each site contributing to a larger story or map that only the initiated could interpret. It is this duality, the blending of physical concealment and symbolic meaning, that has made Templar sanctuaries so elusive and enigmatic. Many modern explorers and researchers have attempted to locate these hidden sites using a combination of historical texts, maps, folklore, and modern technology. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, and careful architectural analysis have revealed promising leads. Underground chambers, unusual foundations, and structures that align with celestial events. Yet for every discovery, countless mysteries remain unsolved. Some chambers appear empty, their purpose still a matter of speculation. Others are accessible only through treacherous terrain or complex locks, as if the Templars designed the very act of discovery as a test of skill, patience, and insight. The search for these locations is further complicated by centuries of deliberate misinformation. Following the suppression of the order, authorities and rival factions may have obscured or destroyed evidence to ensure the Templars' secrets remained buried. Local legends, often dismissed as folklore, may actually contain kernels of truth, preserving cryptic hints passed down through generations. These stories, when examined carefully, reveal an intricate network of locations, each connected by a web of symbols, traditions, and clandestine knowledge. The challenge lies in separating myth from reality, a task that requires both imagination and rigor, intuition and evidence. Ultimately, the hidden locations of the Templars serve as a powerful reminder that the Order's story extends far beyond the official record. They are physical manifestations of secrecy, guardians of knowledge, and silent witnesses to history's untold narratives. Whether these sites hold treasure, manuscripts, or symbolic meaning, their existence challenges the notion that history is fully visible or comprehensible. They are a testament to the Templars' foresight, their strategic brilliance, and their unwavering commitment to preserving a legacy that they believed was too important to be lost. The allure of these hidden places continues to captivate scholars, treasure hunters, and those drawn to the mysteries of the Templars. Each discovery, whether a hidden chamber, an encoded manuscript, or a remote sanctuary, adds another layer to a story that spans centuries. The thrill of exploration, combined with the sense of walking in the footsteps of an ancient order, keeps the legend alive. It reminds us that some truths are deliberately hidden, meant to be uncovered only by those willing to look beyond the surface of history, to read the landscape, the architecture, and the symbols as a secret language written across time. In exploring these hidden locations, we gain not only insight into the Templars' methods, but also a deeper understanding of their enduring influence. They remind us that the Order's legacy is not confined to books or artifacts, but is woven into the very land, structures, and traditions they touched. Each hidden site is a thread in a larger tapestry, connecting past and present, secrecy and revelation. For those willing to follow these threads, the promise of discovery is profound, a glimpse into a world that has remained concealed for centuries, a testament to the persistence, ingenuity, and enduring mystery of the Knights Templar. In recent years, the hunt for the Templar bloodlines has taken a startlingly modern turn. Where once researchers relied solely on manuscripts, folklore, and obscure records, today's science itself can probe the secrets of history. Genealogists and geneticists have begun to examine the possibility that the Templars' most enduring legacy was not merely in treasure or manuscripts, but in the very DNA of their descendants. The concept is both simple and profoundly unsettling. That hidden for centuries, certain bloodlines carry within them a genetic echo of an order thought extinguished, a living testament to a history that official records claim ended abruptly. Tracing these lines is not straightforward. The Templars were a diverse order, composed of knights, scribes, and supporters drawn from across Europe. They married into influential families, adopted or fostered heirs, and in some cases, passed wealth and knowledge to children's secrecy. Over centuries, these familial connections became increasingly difficult to untangle. Complicating matters further, many records were deliberately destroyed during the suppression of the order, leaving genealogists to reconstruct family trees from fragments of legal documents, charters, and private archives. In some cases, the only clues lie in subtle shifts in property ownership, repeated family names, or unexplained social alliances that hint at a hidden continuity. Modern DNA analysis has introduced a revolutionary tool in this quest. Researchers can now compare genetic markers across families with deep historical roots, searching for anomalies or consistencies that might suggest a shared ancestry with the Templars. Certain markers appear unusually prevalent in regions known for strong Templar presence, hinting that descendants may indeed survive today, often completely unaware of their heritage. While this evidence is far from conclusive, it offers a tantalizing glimpse into a hidden legacy, one that science is only beginning to illuminate. The intersection of genetic data and historical research creates a new dimension in the exploration of Templar influence, merging myth, history, and biology into a compelling narrative. Genealogical studies also reveal the potential role of women in preserving the Templar lineage. Contrary to popular belief, the survival of these bloodlines may have depended as much on daughters, wives, and female guardians as on the knights themselves. In families connected to the Templars, women often carried secret knowledge, managed estates, and safeguarded critical documents, acting as custodians of both wealth and wisdom. Their descendants, sometimes distant and unrecognized, may still bear the genetic and cultural imprint of these hidden guardians. The narrative of survival, therefore, is not solely a story of men in armor. It is also a story of strategic marriages, secret alliances, and the quiet influence of women operating behind the scenes. While the idea of tracing Templar DNA captivates the imagination, it also invites controversy. Skeptics argue that centuries of intermarriage and social upheaval make it impossible to identify true descendants with certainty. Genetic markers can suggest connections, but they cannot confirm the presence of esoteric knowledge, ritual practice, or secret authority passed through the centuries. Yet even these critiques cannot diminish the allure of the search. For every inconclusive result, there is a potential breakthrough waiting in a private archive, a forgotten manuscript, or an unusual family record. The quest itself, fraught with uncertainty, mirrors the Templars' own history, a blend of secrecy, strategy, and survival against overwhelming odds. Some studies have attempted to link prominent European families to the Templars, identifying potential heirs through both genetic and documentary evidence. These families, often intertwined with nobility, finance, or politics, may carry traces of the order's bloodline. Certain surnames recur with suspicious regularity in regions of former Templar activity, hinting at deliberate continuity. Even more intriguing are families whose historical documents reference mysterious benefactors, undisclosed inheritances, or secretive councils, clues that suggest the survival of influence alongside DNA. The tantalizing combination of genetics and historical trace evidence creates a multidimensional picture of persistence, one in which the Templar legacy is alive not only in artifacts and ideas, but in living descendants. The implications of these discoveries are profound. If Templar bloodlines do survive, they represent a living bridge between past and present, a human continuity that has silently endured through revolutions, wars, and the passage of time. They suggest that the order's suppression was far from complete, that knowledge, authority, and influence may have been preserved through the careful protection of family lines. This raises difficult questions. What knowledge might these descendants carry unknowingly? Could certain families hold keys to understanding lost rituals, secret texts, or forgotten prophecies? The very possibility injects a sense of urgency and intrigue into the study of Templar history, transforming it from a static academic subject into a living mystery. Adding another layer to this enigma, there are cases where genetic findings intersect with symbolic or cultural traditions. Some families have maintained rituals, oral histories, or ceremonial practices that hint at Templar origins. While often fragmentary or altered over time, these practices can serve as markers, linking modern individuals to a lineage that reaches back centuries. In some instances, subtle cues, such as an heirloom, a cryptic motto, or the arrangement of property, can correspond to patterns identified in historical Templar records. The overlap of science, history, and ritual practice deepens the mystery, suggesting that the preservation of Templar bloodlines was as much a cultural effort as a genetic one. The quest to identify these bloodlines also highlights the fragility of historical memory. Centuries of secrecy, persecution, and deliberate erasure mean that each lead must be treated with caution. Yet every fragmentary record, every genetic anomaly, and every surviving tradition is a testament to the resilience of the Order's legacy. It is a legacy that has endured because it was carefully protected, passed from generation to generation, often hidden in plain sight. The very act of uncovering these threads offers a glimpse into the strategies, foresight, and determination of a medieval organization whose influence continues to ripple through time. Ultimately, the search for Templar DNA is more than a scientific endeavor. It is a journey into the heart of secrecy and survival. It connects us to a story that spans centuries, from medieval knights sworn to protect knowledge, to modern researchers piecing together clues that were deliberately scattered across history. The convergence of genealogy, genetics, and historical research offers not only the possibility of discovery, but also the thrill of connecting with a living past, one that challenges conventional understanding and suggests that the Templars may still walk among us in ways both visible and unseen. Through the lens of modern science, the Templar legacy takes on a new and almost uncanny dimension. The idea that their bloodlines might survive, quietly influencing events, preserving secrets, and carrying knowledge across generations, transforms our perception of history. It suggests that suppression did not equate to annihilation, that knowledge and lineage can survive in forms that are resilient, adaptive, and enduring. In tracing these hidden threads, we come closer to understanding the depth and persistence of a legacy that has fascinated the world for centuries, a legacy that continues to challenge, intrigue, and inspire those willing to seek the truth hidden beneath the layers of time. Long after the dramatic fall of the Templars, the echoes of their presence continued to reverberate in ways that official history has often sought to obscure. Many researchers suggest that the Church itself, in its efforts to eliminate the Order, may have actively suppressed not only their wealth and power, but also knowledge that was considered dangerous, heretical, or too influential for the public record. Documents were destroyed, relics confiscated, and libraries purged, leaving only fragments of what had once been a vast archive of esoteric and practical knowledge. Yet even in the face of systematic eradication, traces of Templar secrets survived, carefully hidden by loyal followers who understood the stakes. This suppression was not merely bureaucratic. It was deliberate, strategic, and often violent. Chronicles from the period describe trials and inquisitions where accusations range from heresy to occult practices, yet beneath the surface lies a more complex story. Some historians now believe these accusations were in part a means to justify the seizure of wealth and eliminate rivals, but they also serve to erase knowledge that could empower future generations. Manuscripts, maps, and records that hinted at Templar bloodlines, secret rituals, or forbidden technologies were selectively destroyed, leaving gaps in the historical record that modern researchers struggle to fill. It is in these gaps that the most compelling mysteries begin to emerge. The surviving evidence of suppression is often subtle, hidden within footnotes, obscure legal records, or marginalia in religious manuscripts. Some Templar texts appear to have been deliberately altered or encoded, a silent act of defiance to preserve information for those capable of deciphering it. Researchers examining these fragments notice patterns, repeated symbols, cryptic references, and deliberate omissions that suggest a knowledge too dangerous to be exposed openly. In effect, the Church's campaign to eradicate the Templars may have paradoxically ensured the survival of secrecy, forcing the Order to perfect methods of concealment that would endure for centuries. Among the most intriguing aspects of suppressed history are the references to Templar relics and sacred knowledge. Certain objects, once cataloged and then disappeared, hint at technological or mystical understanding beyond what was publicly acknowledged at the time. Some scholars theorize that these artifacts were hidden, relocated, or even smuggled out of Europe to protect their secrets. Others suggest that encoded manuscripts may have contained instructions for constructing devices, preserving sacred bloodlines, or accessing hidden sites. The Church, recognizing the potential power of such knowledge, may have intentionally obscured these items, leaving only cryptic clues in architecture, heraldry, and folklore. Suppressed histories also reveal a fascinating tension between visibility and invisibility. While the Templars were publicly persecuted, certain families, associates, and allies continued to protect knowledge quietly, operating in plain sight. Estates, monasteries, and private collections became silent repositories for information deemed too sensitive for public dissemination. Through carefully orchestrated marriages, inheritance arrangements, and social networks, these guardians ensured that the order's influence and secret survived, even if their public presence vanished. This deliberate concealment suggests a sophisticated understanding of power, secrecy, and historical continuity, an understanding that challenges the narrative of the Templars as entirely defeated. Evidence of suppression extends even into the very way history was written. Chronicles produced under ecclesiastical oversight often minimized the Templars' achievements while emphasizing alleged heresies. The narrative presented to the public was one of criminality, excess, and divine punishment, conveniently erasing accounts of their contributions to finance, architecture, and knowledge preservation. Modern historians, in contrast, attempt to read between the lines, piecing together the reality that lurks beneath these biased accounts. This requires careful cross-referencing, analysis of overlooked manuscripts, and sometimes a willingness to consider sources dismissed by mainstream scholarship. The result is a picture of history that is layered, contested, and far more complex than official records suggest. The suppression of Templar knowledge may also explain why so many of their secrets remain tantalizingly out of reach today. Encoded manuscripts, hidden chambers, and obscure genealogies create an enduring puzzle, one that challenges both scholars and enthusiasts alike. For every discovery, there are questions that remain unanswered, leading to theories of global influence, clandestine societies, and hidden technologies. These suppressed narratives force us to confront the idea that history is not a static record but a contested terrain shaped by those in power and preserved, intentionally or inadvertently, by those committed to secrecy. Some of the most fascinating suppressed histories concern the Templars' possible connections to other secretive groups and orders. After the fall of the order, certain members are thought to have integrated into organizations that continued their work in shadow, transmitting knowledge, influence, and even ritual practices to subsequent generations. Freemasonry, Rosicrucian societies, and other mystical orders are frequently cited as potential inheritors of Templar secrets. While the evidence is often circumstantial, the patterns are compelling. Symbols, rituals, and philosophical principles persist across centuries, suggesting that suppression in one context may have simply shifted the secrecy into another. This deliberate concealment also raises questions about what was considered too dangerous for the world to know. Were there technologies, financial strategies, or mystical insights that could have challenged the established order? Did knowledge of bloodline continuity or sacred inheritance represent a threat to religious or political authorities? These questions fuel the modern fascination with Templars and underscore the high stakes involved in understanding what was deliberately hidden. Every fragment of suppressed history offers a glimpse into a reality that was carefully managed, leaving tantalizing hints without providing definitive answers. Ultimately, the suppression of Templar history serves as a reminder that history is rarely neutral. The story we inherit is shaped by those with the power to record, destroy, or obscure events. The Templars, though persecuted and demonized, adapted by embedding their secrets in ways that defied eradication. Architecture, symbols, encoded manuscripts, and hidden networks all became instruments of survival. This suppressed knowledge, scattered yet persistent, continues to challenge modern researchers and enthusiasts, creating a tension between the official historical narrative and the deeper, hidden currents that ripple beneath it. The implications are profound. To study suppressed Templar history is to step into a world where knowledge and power were inseparable, where secrecy was a form of resistance, and where the survival of an order depended not on visibility, but on cunning, foresight, and discretion. It forces us to reconsider what we accept as historical truth, to ask who decides which stories are told, and to acknowledge the possibility that some of history's most remarkable achievements have been deliberately concealed. For those willing to follow the trail, the suppressed histories of the Templars offer not only mystery, but insight, connecting the past to enduring legacies that may still shape our world today. Among the most enduring legends of the Templars is their alleged connection to the Holy Grail, a symbol that has fascinated scholars, mystics, and storytellers for centuries. The Grail is often depicted as a sacred cup or vessel, but its significance may extend far beyond the literal. For the Templars, it is believed to have represented not only divine favor, but also a tangible connection to the sacred bloodlines they were sworn to protect. This connection, if true, suggests that the Grail was not merely a relic of religious devotion, but a symbol intertwined with knowledge, power, and continuity, capable of shaping destinies far beyond the medieval battlefield. Legends suggest that the Templars, in their roles as guardians, may have been entrusted with fragments of the Grail itself, or with knowledge derived from it. Some accounts describe ceremonies, coded manuscripts, and secret rituals that imply a profound understanding of the Grail's spiritual and possibly physical significance. This knowledge, carefully concealed, was passed down only to those deemed worthy or capable of understanding its implications. To the outside world, the Grail remained a distant, almost mythical object. To the Templars, however, it may have been a living symbol, guiding their actions and serving as a key to a greater, hidden reality. The association between the Grail and bloodlines is particularly compelling. Some theories propose that the Grail represents a lineage rather than an object, a continuity of sacred blood that the Templars were charged with preserving. In this interpretation, the cup or vessel becomes a metaphor for life, inheritance, and divine mandate. Protecting the Grail is therefore inseparable from protecting the descendants who carry its essence. This perspective casts the Templars' secretive behavior in a new light. Their trials, disappearances, and hidden locations were not just about preserving wealth or knowledge, but about safeguarding a living legacy that could shape the spiritual and political future of Europe. Architectural evidence and manuscript studies lend subtle support to these theories. Certain Templar churches, chapels, and fortresses contain symbolic motifs, geometric alignments, and hidden inscriptions that some researchers interpret as references to the Grail or its guardians. These symbols are often layered and complex, accessible only to those who understand the order's esoteric language. Even minute details in stone carvings or stained glass windows may carry encoded messages, suggesting that the Templars embedded their devotion and their mission into the very structures they created. These silent markers act as both memorials and guides, hinting at knowledge deliberately hidden from the uninitiated. The Grail connection also resonates in the context of other legends and myths associated with the Templars. Stories of lost treasures, secret voyages, and hidden sanctuaries often intersect with references to sacred bloodlines, suggesting a broader network of guardianship and concealment. Some scholars speculate that the Templars' travels from Europe to the Holy Land and beyond were motivated not solely by military or economic goals, but by the protection and transportation of sacred objects and knowledge. Each journey, each hidden chamber, and each coded manuscript may have been part of a deliberate effort to safeguard the Grail's legacy and the bloodlines associated with it. Yet the Grail's meaning is intentionally ambiguous, adding to its allure and the Templars' mystique. Some see it as a literal object, a chalice used in ancient ceremonies. Others interpret it as a symbol of divine knowledge, mystical enlightenment, or even a sophisticated understanding of science and spirituality that predates the medieval era. The ambiguity itself is part of the Templar strategy. By allowing multiple interpretations, they ensured that only those equipped with a proper insight could recognize the Grail's true significance. In this sense, the Grail is both a destination and a journey, a secret preserved through layers of symbolism, encoded texts, and the loyalty of generations. The Grail legend also intersects with accounts of Templar bloodlines surviving into modern times. Some theories suggest that certain European families, whose lineages may trace back to Templar ancestors, are in fact the living guardians of the Grail's legacy. These families, often shrouded in secrecy, may have been entrusted with the preservation of both knowledge and lineage, ensuring that the symbolic and spiritual significance of the Grail continues to endure. The Grail thus becomes not merely a historical curiosity, but a living thread connecting the medieval past to the present, a testament to the Templars' long-term vision and strategic foresight. Even today, the allure of the Grail captivates explorers, researchers, and storytellers. Its mystery compels us to look beyond the obvious, to question what history has chosen to reveal and what it has deliberately concealed. The Grail is more than a relic or a myth. It is a symbol of hidden knowledge, of continuity, and of the delicate balance between secrecy and revelation. By studying the Grail in the context of the Templars' mission, we begin to understand the full scope of their vision, their commitment to preserving what they considered sacred, and the extraordinary lengths they went to ensure that knowledge, power, and lineage survive centuries of persecution. Ultimately, the Grail represents the intersection of history, legend, and esoteric truth. It embodies the Templars' dual role as warriors and guardians, as public servants and secret keepers. Its symbolic resonance extends beyond religion, touching on bloodlines, hidden knowledge, and the mysteries of survival in a world where power is often contested and truth is frequently obscured. To follow the trail of the Grail is to follow the trail of the Templars themselves, to move through centuries of secrecy, to decipher symbols and rituals, and to recognize that some of the greatest treasures of history are not measured in gold or silver, but in legacy, knowledge, and continuity. Through this lens, the Grail is not a destination, but a key, a symbol that unlocks understanding of the Templars' deepest intentions. It is a reminder that the Order's secrets were never random, never purely symbolic, and never entirely lost. Embedded within myths, bloodlines, architecture, and manuscripts is a continuity that challenges conventional history and invites modern seekers to look beyond the surface. The Grail, in all its mystery and complexity, remains the ultimate emblem of what the Templars protected, a sacred trust, a hidden lineage, and a knowledge that refuses to vanish, even after centuries of suppression. After centuries of speculation, suppression, and secrecy, the Templar legacy culminates in revelations that are as profound as they are unsettling. All the hidden locations, encoded manuscripts, surviving bloodlines, and guarded prophecies converge to suggest a reality far more complex than traditional history allows. The Templars, far from being vanquished, may have engineered a survival strategy so meticulous and far-reaching that their influence persists in ways the world is only beginning to comprehend. This is not the story of a defeated order. It is the story of an organization that adapted, concealed, and ensured that its secrets could survive centuries of persecution. The first layer of revelation lies in the interconnectedness of Templar knowledge. Every hidden site, every cryptic manuscript, and every architectural symbol may not have existed in isolation, but rather as part of a sophisticated network designed to preserve wisdom, wealth, and lineage. Patterns emerge across Europe and beyond, suggesting that the Templars anticipated the order's suppression and acted preemptively. By embedding knowledge in multiple forms, physical, symbolic, and genealogical, they created redundancy that would allow their legacy to endure even if one or several elements were destroyed. This strategy demonstrates not only remarkable foresight, but also a deep understanding of human and institutional vulnerability. At the heart of these revelations is the notion of Templar influence in modern society. Some researchers argue that the Order's hidden networks continue to shape financial systems, political alliances, and social hierarchies, operating quietly beneath the surface of public awareness. Wealth preserved across generations, secret marriages, and strategic inheritances may have ensured that certain families maintained influence, even as the Order itself ostensibly disappeared. In this sense, Templar survival is not merely a question of lineage or blood. It is a question of enduring power, knowledge, and social engineering orchestrated over centuries to preserve the Order's core mission. The Grail connection, central to the Templars' mystical and symbolic legacy, is another key revelation. Evidence suggests that the Grail, whether interpreted as a literal object, a symbol of sacred bloodlines, or a repository of esoteric knowledge, was never fully lost. Its guardianship was meticulously maintained, often transferred through select families and secret societies, ensuring continuity even under the watchful eyes of the Church and state authorities. This implies that the Templars' mission extended far beyond the temporal. It was a spiritual and genetic mission, designed to safeguard both the essence of knowledge and the continuity of the bloodlines entrusted with it. In this light, the Grail becomes less a myth and more a symbol of deliberate preservation, a key to understanding the scope of the Order's foresight. Modern genetic studies, when viewed in combination with historical research, provide additional confirmation of these patterns. Traces of Templar bloodlines appear across Europe, subtly aligned with historical records, property transfers, and the locations of hidden sites. While each individual line may seem insignificant in isolation, together they form a lattice of continuity, linking past and present, secret and visible. This convergence of evidence suggests that Templar influence was never entirely extinguished. It was quietly dispersed, surviving in both people and institutions, patiently waiting for the right moment to re-emerge into history's consciousness. Perhaps most astonishing are the implications of encoded manuscripts and symbolic artifacts. Objects once thought to be decorative or purely ceremonial may, in fact, contain layers of instruction, maps, or warnings. Certain geometric patterns, allegorical texts, and ceremonial implements hint at knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and spiritual philosophy that was far advanced for its time. In some cases, these artifacts appear to be part of a broader system of instruction, designed to guide successors in understanding the full scope of the Order's mission. It is a revelation that the Templars were not merely knights or bankers, but custodians of a multifaceted knowledge system, integrating science, mysticism, and strategy in ways that remain only partially deciphered today. This hidden architecture of knowledge, when combined with surviving bloodlines and secretive networks, paints a picture of an Order that was fundamentally concerned with continuity and adaptation. Every action, every encoded manuscript, every hidden vault, every arranged marriage served a singular purpose: to preserve the integrity of the Templar legacy. Even the trials, persecution, and public suppression were anticipated, accounted for, and woven into the strategy. The Templars were not merely reactive. They were proactive, designing contingency plans that would allow their mission to survive even under the most extreme threats. The implications extend beyond history and legend into the modern world. If these patterns of survival, encoded knowledge, and lineage preservation are accurate, then the influence of the Templars may still ripple through today's institutions, finance, and social hierarchies. Some theorists posit that modern secret societies, corporate dynasties, and influential families may unknowingly carry fragments of this legacy. Even without conscious awareness, the structures of power and continuity established by the Templars could still shape decisions, strategies, and alignments on a global scale. The possibility that the Order's influence endures in subtle, unseen ways is both awe-inspiring and unsettling, inviting a reevaluation of how history, power, and secrecy intersect. Perhaps the most profound revelation of all is the enduring mystery itself. Despite centuries of persecution, suppression, and mythologizing, the Templars succeeded in preserving a legacy that defies easy explanation. Their story challenges the very notion of historical finality, suggesting that knowledge, bloodlines, and influence can persist even under the harshest attempts at eradication. The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes that what was lost in plain sight may never have truly disappeared. Instead, it was carefully hidden, preserved with extraordinary foresight, and transmitted in ways that continue to shape our understanding of history and power. The climactic realization is that the Templar legacy is simultaneously visible and invisible, tangible and symbolic, historical and timeless. Hidden sites, encoded texts, bloodlines, and ceremonial knowledge form a continuum that bridges centuries. They reveal an order that understood the fragility of human institutions, the impermanence of power, and the enduring importance of secrecy and foresight. The Templars' genius was not only in their military prowess or economic acumen, but in their ability to ensure that their mission transcended time itself, embedding their influence into the very fabric of society and human understanding. In contemplating these revelations, one begins to understand the scope of what the Templars achieved. Their story is not merely one of knights and battles. It is a story of preservation, strategy, and vision. It challenges us to look beyond conventional history, to question the narratives handed down to us, and to recognize that some of the most profound truths may lie hidden, awaiting discovery. The Templars may have vanished from the public eye, but the architecture of their influence, the continuity of their bloodlines, and the preservation of their knowledge suggest a legacy that is not only enduring but active, quietly shaping the world around us even today. Ultimately, this climactic revelation reframes the entire narrative of the Templars. No longer are they merely a historical curiosity or a subject of legend. They become a living testament to foresight, resilience, and the power of secrecy. Their survival strategy, meticulously executed across centuries, offers a lens through which to view history not as a linear progression of events, but as a complex web of influence, adaptation, and hidden continuity. For those who follow the threads carefully, the Templars' final secrets are no longer purely mythical. They're a tangible, living legacy that challenges our understanding of history, power, and the enduring mystery of human civilization. As the story of the Templars unfolds, one truth becomes undeniable. The Order's influence extends far beyond the battles, trials, and myths that dominate conventional history. Their legacy, carefully woven into bloodlines, hidden manuscripts, sacred sites, and encoded knowledge, challenges our understanding of what is visible and what remains deliberately concealed. The Templar story reminds us that history is rarely straightforward. It is layered, contested, and often filtered through the perspectives of those in power. What we perceive as the end of an era may, in reality, be a transformation, a shift from public prominence to quiet, enduring influence that continues to ripple through time. Reflecting on the vast network of hidden sites, it is remarkable to consider the meticulous planning and foresight that allowed these locations to serve as sanctuaries for knowledge and relics. From underground chambers in medieval castles to remote monasteries and concealed crypts, each site was deliberately chosen, protected, and aligned with both strategic and symbolic considerations. Some locations were designed to withstand centuries of change, their secrets encoded in architecture, art, and the very landscape itself. These hidden places are a testament to the Templars' understanding of impermanence, a reminder that true preservation requires patience, intelligence, and discretion. The survival of bloodlines adds another dimension to the Templars' enduring presence. Generations of descendants may carry more than genetics. They inherit stories, traditions, and perhaps even fragments of the knowledge that the Order sought to protect. These bloodlines are living threads connecting the modern world to a past that is often obscured, invisible, and enigmatic. The implications are profound. The Templars' mission was not simply to safeguard wealth or defend territory, but to ensure continuity, a continuity that bridges centuries and may still subtly influence events and decisions today. This realization transforms the Templar narrative from a historical curiosity into a living, breathing legacy. Equally significant is the survival of esoteric knowledge, preserved in encoded manuscripts, symbolic rituals, and hidden artifacts. The Templars' understanding of astronomy, sacred geometry, spirituality, and possibly even early science suggests an intellectual breadth that was remarkable for its time. Their ability to embed wisdom in forms that could survive persecution and remain interpretable only to the initiated demonstrates a profound mastery of both secrecy and pedagogy. The knowledge they protected was more than academic. It was practical, spiritual, and strategic, intended to guide not only their contemporaries but generations yet to come. The Grail, as a symbol and perhaps as a real object of spiritual significance, encapsulates the Templars' vision. It represents continuity, sacred bloodlines, and the protection of knowledge that transcends ordinary understanding. Whether literal or symbolic, the Grail exemplifies the Order's careful intertwining of myth, strategy, and esoteric wisdom. Its guardianship required vigilance, intelligence, and secrecy, qualities the Templars cultivated to perfection. In understanding the Grail in the context of Templar survival, we glimpse a worldview that integrates the spiritual, genetic, and strategic, a worldview that continues to intrigue scholars, enthusiasts, and seekers today. The suppression of Templar history, while intended to erase their influence, paradoxically ensured its endurance. By forcing the Order to conceal its wealth, knowledge, and networks, history created a legacy that was resilient, encrypted, and adaptable. Hidden archives, secretive families, and coded symbols have survived centuries of conflict, persecution, and cultural change, challenging modern researchers to decode their significance. The very act of suppression became a crucible through which the Templars' secrets were refined, concentrated, and made enduring. In this way, their story is not one of loss, but of remarkable preservation, a narrative that continues to unfold in ways subtle, profound, and enduring. As we contemplate the Templars' final secrets, it becomes clear that their story is also a mirror for our understanding of power, knowledge, and secrecy. History is shaped not only by what is recorded, but by what is deliberately concealed, by what is transmitted through networks of trust, and by what survives beyond the reach of authority. The Templars mastered these dynamics, leaving behind a legacy that challenges assumptions and invites us to look deeper. Their enduring influence encourages reflection on the nature of continuity, the responsibility of knowledge, and the ways in which human endeavors can resonate far beyond their immediate time and place. Ultimately, The Templar story is both a cautionary tale and an inspiration. It warns of the vulnerability of knowledge and influence to suppression, persecution, and oblivion. Yet it also demonstrates the power of foresight, strategy, and perseverance, showing how careful planning, loyalty, and ingenuity can allow a legacy to transcend centuries. From hidden crypts to bloodlines, from the Grail to encoded wisdom, the Templars' mission was never simply about survival. It was about shaping the future in ways both visible and hidden, spiritual and temporal, practical and symbolic. As this narrative draws to a close, one is left with the haunting realization that the Templars are not merely a historical phenomenon, but an enduring mystery. Their influence, meticulously preserved and quietly diffused, invites us to reconsider what we know about history, to question what has been concealed, and to recognize the profound capacity of human foresight. The Order's secrets challenge our understanding of time, power, and continuity, suggesting that the past is never fully gone, that knowledge can survive even the most extreme attempts at eradication, and that the guardians of such secrets may still walk among us. In the end, the story of the Templars is a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the enduring quest for knowledge. It bridges centuries, linking medieval knights to modern researchers, hidden manuscripts to genetic clues, and sacred symbols to living legacies. It is a narrative that resists simplification, a story that demands careful attention, imagination, and respect for the complexity of history. As we reflect on the Order's extraordinary survival, we are reminded that some truths are deliberately hidden, waiting for those who are willing to seek them with patience, insight, and reverence. The Templars' final secrets, though long concealed, remain accessible to those who look beyond conventional narratives. Their legacy teaches us that history is not merely a record of events, but a continuum of knowledge, influence, and foresight. The Order's story invites us to question, to explore, and to recognize the interplay between secrecy, strategy, and survival. In doing so, it leaves us with a profound sense of wonder and curiosity, a reminder that the greatest mysteries often lie just beneath the surface, waiting for discovery. And so, as the echoes of their history fade into the present, the Templars continue to live in the hidden traces they left behind, in bloodlines, manuscripts, sacred sites, and symbols, an enduring legacy that challenges our perception of time, secrecy, and human endeavor. The Order's story is a bridge between the visible and the hidden, the known and the unknowable, offering a timeless lesson. That true influence is rarely immediate, often concealed, and sometimes, in its quiet endurance, infinitely more powerful than the world ever realizes.